Hello, welcome to lecture 6, Transdisciplinary Approaches to Linguistics. So, by now you know that in linguistics we study about human sounds, how sounds combine together to form words, how words combine together to form sentences, and then various meanings of sentence depending on context and all those. But language is not only that. Language is used in every field of life, and that's why studying language is a vast thing. It's not only about studying language about various disciplines, but also in different aspects of life we need to know about language, how language is used. So, in linguistics we also study different issues related to language. We try to solve those issues through linguistic theories and linguistic studies. So, if we want to know how we can teach someone foreign language, or how a language is acquired by a child, or how there are various disease or disabilities related to language or disorders related to language, how we can teach machines about languages. So, all those also we study in linguistics. So, as in this picture you can see, we also want to explore how brain process our language, because we know human language is very smart. When someone is speaking a language and in between if someone sneezes or coughs, we can easily understand that that is not part of the language, that is some extra noise. So, we need to know how our brain process all those things. Of course, we study about grammar, but also we study about how we can teach grammar, how language can be taught and learned. We also talk about various other aspects of languages. And so, when we talk about linguistics, now we see that linguistics is not only limited to this particular discipline, it has actually gone beyond that. And sometimes when we study about different things related to language, it becomes actually difficult to say whether it is linguistics or is it combination of different disciplines. So, for example, let us talk about language policy. When we talk about language policy, or if someone has to design language policy for a particular state, then lots of things have to be considered, like how many languages are used there, how languages are used in different domains. Maybe there are 3 languages. One is used only for religious purpose, another one is used only in home domain, while the other one is used for official purpose. So, how languages are used in different domains, politics behind the language. So, there can be different speech communities living together and what they feel about each other, what is the linguistic attitude towards their own community and also towards the other community. What are the social practices, how history has actually made it possible, what is the historical aspect to the language, how the language evolved, or what is the cultural part of it. So, all these are actually covered when we have to decide language policies of a particular place. So, it has been said about bilinguals that bilingual brains are not like one individual using 2 different languages like 2 individuals. It's like one individual using one language which is a mixture of 2 languages, and that's why it is being called trans language. So, trans languages, bilinguals do not switch codes like 2 monolinguals. It's not like 2 monolinguals are residing in the brain of a bilingual. Rather, it's a single individual, but they use both codes and both are mixed together in their brain, and it works like one language. Same is the case when we say linguistics is transdisciplinary. Lots of different disciplines merge together to form one particular field of study, you can say. So, we will look how it evolved and how it all started. Of course, to study linguistics or to know about linguistics, we need to know the core aspects of linguistics. What are the core aspects? The core aspects are, as you know, phonology, morphology, syntax, the basic thing, how linguistics, how language works, how there are different human sounds, how those sounds combine to form words and how words combine to form sentences and beyond that. So, that is the core part of linguistics. And then comes the applied part, which is also at times called peripheral part, applied part or transdisciplinary part. So, when we know about these different aspects of language, different units of language, then we try to solve various problems related to languages with the theories which we have known by studying the words, morphemes or syntax of a particular language or languages with an universal approach. So, when we know that there are some similarities between all the different languages or differences between similar languages also, we know about certain theories and then we try to apply these theories in different other fields, or you can say for different other problems, to solve other problems or issues like say language policy or natural language processing, any other thing. So, these are called applications of linguistics. So, we can understand this with this chart where you can see that broadly speaking, linguistics is divided into two basic branches, theoretical and applied, and that does not mean that applied does not have its own theories, it also has theories. But when we say theoretical, then we need the core part of linguistics, that is sounds, words, sentences, meanings. So, those are studied to know the basic core of language, how language works. Those can be studied from two different approaches, one is formal, other is functional. Functional looks more at how language functions, how looking at the functions it tries to describe the units of language, while formal approach is more about looking at the units and trying to create a formulaic representation or how language there is the pattern, a pattern is found. So, functional also wants to look at the pattern, but it has different approach. In formal, the rules are first discovered and then it is tested on data, while in functional the data is collected and based on the data rules are being derived from the data. So, these are basic differences and of course, there are other differences as well. And when we talk about applied approach, so application of these theories, the theories which we have discovered or which we have generated using or learning about the words, the morphemes, the sentences of the languages, we try to apply those theories in various other subfields, one can say. So, these subfields can be natural language processing, language learning, education policy and many more, of course, not only limited to these. So, application of linguistics and applied linguistics are actually two different approaches, though at times both are mixed up. So, application of linguistics is like application of various rules or various theories which we have known by studying core linguistics, while applied linguistics often refers to learning and teaching of linguistics. So, applied linguistics has been defined as the theoretical and empirical investigation of real world problems in which language is a central issue. That is how it started, but slowly it narrowed down to language learning and teaching. So, applied linguistics is often referred as language learning and teaching ways. Why? Because it started with that. Initially, during early 20th century, English use was vast. So, everywhere English was needed, and that is why it was a need to teach English even to the non-native speakers of English, and that is why lots of theories were starting and lots of ways people were exploring, so that conveniently one can teach English to the non-native speakers or non-native users. Because when one needs to learn a language, it is not only about grammar or learning of the words, right. So, if I need to learn language, if I take a dictionary and I learn all the words of that dictionary, or if I know all the rules of the grammar, do you think I can speak correct language or I can use the language properly? No, I can't, because I also need to know the social aspects. I need to know the strategies. I need to know the pragmatic skills. I should have that, because there are certain social constraints. Certain things are there which we can't say, certain things are there which we can say, and certain things are there which if one doesn't say, then also it implies that. So, we need to know all about that. Language learning is not only about grammar or only learning the words. So, one needs to know the various aspects of language, how language should be used in a particular setup. The way I am talking to my professor or the way I will talk to my colleague is not the way I will talk to say an auto rickshaw driver or to my student or my mother, right. So, why? Because these are different conversational strategies. There are different strategies which I will use to convey the same thing, but the way of talking will be different depending on with whom I am talking. So, these things also we need to learn. So, imagine if you are talking the way you talk to your parents to someone stranger, that might not look appropriate, or the way you talk to your friends, you are talking in the same manner to your professor, that again might not look very appropriate. So, we need to know about all those strategies. When we are talking about oral use of language, we need to know about these strategies, and when we are talking about writing, then again we need to know about writing conventions, like writing reports, writing applications, writing project grants. Everything has different formats. The way you write on social media is not the way you write a formal letter or a formal application. So, it varies, and we need to know that. So, it was realized when I say that English teaching and learning become a thing. So, it was decided how one should actually teach about all this. It was not only about teaching the grammar or not only about teaching the words and making them learn new words. It was also about how to teach the conversational strategies, how to teach the pragmatic skills, how to teach about writing conventions. So, all these were needed, and that is why lots of theories actually started during this time, where researchers were also working on second language learning and teaching, and lots of works were being done. These researchers made their recommendations to the language teachers, and based on their study, the language teaching and learning process was evolving. So, that is how actually it started, and that is why applied linguistics often refers to language learning and teaching. But now we understood with this global era that how things have become very complex and challenging. So, language teaching and learning also became interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary approach to applied linguistics also started. Second and foreign language education, second language acquisition research, educational psychology, teaching methodology, language learning technologies, language testing research, education policy, creation of pedagogical materials, literacy theory, these all were incorporated in language learning and teaching. Why that was important? That was important because lots of things became concern of the language teachers. It was not only about teaching a language to a non-native speaker, but it covered lots of things, like the one whom I am teaching, what is her speech background, what is her native language, because sometimes one may lose her or his mother language and then come back to learn it. So, we know about heritage language, where one can say that my grandparents used our own language, but somehow we do not know, we can't speak our language and we need to learn that. So, there has to be a different approach for that than the person coming and saying that I have no idea about Chinese, but I want to learn Chinese. I have no link, but I want to learn Chinese. And then there can be someone who can say that my grandparents used to speak Hindi, but we are here for 3 generations in US, so we forgot Hindi, but we want to learn Hindi. So, that is a heritage language. So, there can be a different approach. Moreover, there can be other aspects, like a language can be a minority language. So there can be major and dominant languages in that area, and a particular speech community is less represented in the class and even in that particular geographical area, and those people belonging to that particular speech community can be termed as minority speech community or minoritized speech community. And then what should be the approach of the teacher towards them, how they can be made to be more inclusive in the class. And these have actually greater effects, like if they are not included in the group discussions, they don't feel inclusive in the classroom, we know that there are more dropouts from the school. So now with changing times, we came to know that language teaching and learning was not very simple. It was not just about teaching and learning. It was actually beyond that. The teachers need to know about the backgrounds of the students. They need to know how they are actually learning the language or for what purpose they are learning the language. So all those aspects were actually included. And when these all were included, of course the field became more broadened and somewhere it started becoming interdisciplinary. Because now we know that there are lots of teaching tools being created so that one can learn remotely from one area, or there are various apps being created for say languages which do not have much resources. One can use those apps, or one can learn a language sitting in one's own home. So how to develop these apps? When we talk about that, then we are again going into developing a software, which is the domain of computer science. So we can see how all the disciplines are coming together, and that's why we see that this particular sub-domain of linguistics has also broadened up to become interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary. So when we talk about applications of linguistics, we know that application of linguistics can be in various other disciplines, may it be computer science and artificial intelligence, biology and genetics, criminology and forensic science, mass communication, sociology, anthropology, history, psychology, geography. So actually without language we can't do anything. That's why language is part of it, one point. Secondly, when I am saying language, we can't do anything without language, that doesn't mean that we can't communicate without language. What I mean is that we need to know about the linguistic aspect, we need to know about the speech community. If a sociologist is working on a particular community, then she needs to know about the community, the linguistic aspect of the community. So there may be more than one speech community. How do they interact? Do they, the speech communities, what are the attitudes towards each other? So everything a sociologist will study. And we also study how social aspects affect language use. How there are studies on language and gender, how because of different genders the language use can be different, and again we have seen over the time how it has changed. So there are some studies in the older times which shows how gender played an important role in certain societies, and that role has actually changed in the current society. That also we have seen, so that we study. We also know how educational background, how social class, all these affects use of language. Moreover, we also see how when in a society we have more than one language, how one particular language is used for a particular purpose while the other one is used for some other purpose. You might imagine that if you are speaking something in say in your own language, but then there are certain terms which you prefer to use in English, those have become part of your language. So we have borrowed lots of words from other language, and sometimes we have not borrowed. We know the term or the word in our language, but we prefer using it in English. There are lots of certain terms. So in Indian languages across India, it has been seen that when people talk about death in a very casual term, say not a informal context, but if someone is informing about someone's death, then sometimes what happens, people do use the word death English word rather than using the native language word. It has been seen. So people prefer using that. Then some very cursing words are used in English, very commonly used. Though you use any Indian language, but while you are cursing, you might use some of the English words. So there are certain uses which varies, and we also change our language depending on the context. So that again depends upon the social background. So all those are covered when we talk about the interplay of sociology and linguistics. Of course, in history we study when we talk about development of human race, then we talk how language evolved, and with that we can study the change of language. So historical aspect to language, and also when we study about historical aspect of human race, then also we need to know different aspects of language and language use. Similarly, language is used with other disciplines. I will explain about some of those. One which is very important nowadays, so that is the interplay of computer science and artificial intelligence. We see lots of works being done in this area, and mostly everyone is working on this. The major companies and all those are working on it. Why? Because it has proved to be very useful in real life. You know that there are lots of machine translations which are being used regularly by all of us. There are spell checkers in our mobile phones, we can see in the laptops everywhere. There are spell checkers, text predictions, speech to text, text to speech. You say something and it gets typed by itself, or there is something typed, there is a book, and then in PDF there is a book, and you ask the machine to read it for it will read out to you. So all these are there, and a very recent thing is chatbot. So it interacts in a conversational way, just like two humans talking, it can converse in that way. It has a language based model that the developer fine tunes for human interaction. So humans can easily interact through chatbot, which is generally used by the companies for the customers. So how do you think those things are developed? One needs to know about the language. If the chatbot can use say one or two language, then the chatbot should know the basics about those language. The one who has developed it needs to know about the basic of the language, and then there comes the importance of core linguistics. One needs to know about the linguistic rules to teach the machine about it, so that the machine can use the language like human, though it is far from that now at present stage, but still the aim is to teach the machine human language, so that it can use the language like humans. And for that, the humans, we need to know how language actually works. We need to know the core aspects of language. So we see how the core aspects are being applied into different genres. Again, if we talk about biology and genetics, we know that there are various studies which are done in biology or genetics which are related to language. So I will talk a little about Broca's area and Wernicke's area now. So Broca's area is utilized in speech production. So this is studied of course in linguistics as well as in biology, where it is a part of brain which is located near motor cortex, and this area actually prepares the brain or plans what to speak. So if you listen to something, your brain knows how to respond to that. So what will be the response is decided by Broca's area. So and then that plan is that message that this is how I am going to react to this is sent to the motor cortex, and motor cortex then activates the speech organs, and that's how we utter a sentence or a word in response to something. So that is the Broca's area, while Wernicke's area is that area which is also located near Broca's area. It helps us to comprehend a language. If someone is saying something, we need to understand what is being said, so that we understand and then we react to it. Of course, all those things happen very fast, so we don't know it consciously, but our brain works like that. There is one particular area, Wernicke's area, where we comprehend sentence or what has been told to us or whatever we have read, and in Broca's area works for the production, how we should produce, what should we say, how should we produce a sentence. That message is formed in Broca's area and then passed on to motor cortex, and then motor cortex pass this message to our speech organs, and then we utter a sentence or a word. So, to know how, if someone can't speak or if someone can't react to something, then how will we know about that? Whether the person can't understand or whether the person can't produce a sentence in reply. So, if I am asking someone what is your name and the person is not saying something, then I need to know whether, where is the problem, whether the person can't understand what I am saying or the person can understand but don't know how to respond. So, there are, we know that if sometimes Wernicke's area is affected, then the people can't understand what is being told, and if the Broca's area is affected, then the person can't actually reply, though he or she understands what is being said to him or her, but the person doesn't know how to reply, how to respond, because Broca's area is being affected. So, all those things actually need language, because through language only it can be tested. There are various other disorders which are related to language, like dyslexia, you may know, aphasia, autism. So, all of these diseases actually somewhere affect speech, and that is why speech therapists are there who also have certain ideas about linguistics, and again to study how the language is affected, whether there is problem in comprehension or whether there is problem in production of speech. All those actually also needs linguistics along with biology and genetics. So, this is the diagram where you can see the Wernicke's area and Broca's area, and so there is this portion in between Broca's and Wernicke's area where you can actually see the motor cortex. So, both are located in the left hemisphere. Now, when we talk about criminology and forensic science, linguistics is also used there. So, there are certain suicide notes or threat messages to know who can be the criminal or to identify the features of the criminal. Linguists study the pattern of speech for recorded speech or the pattern of writing. So, looking at a specimen of writing, one can have ideas about little bit about the social background, about the gender, about lots of aspect of the writer or the speaker, and that is why forensic linguistics is another branch of linguistics which is used in forensic science to know about criminals or to study criminology. So, that is also a very new but very important field or application of linguistics. In mass communication, mass linguistics, or you can say media linguistics, has become an emerging field nowadays, where people use where people study traditional media, of course, along with print media, electronic media, and also about social media. Different aspects of use of language is studied. How language of propaganda is actually used, how or what are the techniques through which one manipulates the use of language so that the consumer will go for that material, will buy that material, or how aggressive language is being used or it can be checked in say social media, how hate speech can be checked in various platforms. So, there are lots of works and research being going on aggressive speech and hate speech. So, what Facebook also have certain projects on hate speech, where they want researchers to know how the machine can understand what is hate and what is non-hate, or what is aggressive and what is non-aggressive. And when the machine will know that, machine will automatically censor the aggressive speech or aggressive use of language. So, you can see how media, computer science, linguistics, everything is coming together into play. So, these are also aspects of linguistics. So, we see how everything together is being used for various applications. So, when we talk about real life applications, we see that linguistics along with other branches are used for various applications, and that is why we can even say that it is not only interdisciplinary, it has actually become transdisciplinary, where we can't even see the boundaries of different disciplines, rather all merge together to serve humankind, we can say. And with this example, I will end today's lecture. So, here you can see this is a bird book, and this book has been created by a linguist and an ornithologist. So, here what you say, this is a bird book of great Annamanias. The linguist Professor Anvita Abhi, she collected these bird names, and when she collected it and she studied the morphological aspect of these bird names, she came to understand that these names tells about the features of the bird. For example, this picture which is shown here, this is the bird called Che Lele. Che Lele is the name. So, Che here means pointed and Lele means moving. So, this bird has pointed beak and it keeps on swinging, it is always in the swinging motion, the beak. And then the ornithologist, he understands that how the features of the bird or the features of this particular species is being reflected in its name, in the term by which it is referred in the particular community. And we know that this community is actually in the verge of extinction, it is an endangered language. So, the linguist, she is trying to save the language, trying to document the names of these birds, and when she is documenting, she knows that these names are not only the names, not only just terms or just random names for the birds. These also carries various features of the birds, about the physical feature, about their habitat, where they stay, where they move, how they affect humankind. So, different names have different aspects hidden in it, which is actually certified by the ornithologist, and for him it becomes very important, because with the extinction of the language, the names are also being lost, and when the names are being lost, this particular information is also being lost. So, that information is important for both the linguist and the ornithologist to be kept documented, and that is why together they have published this book, where they have names of the birds and explanation is given for both. The linguistic explanation is there along with the scientific explanation of it. So, I hope you enjoyed the class. These are some of the readings. I hope you will go through it. Thank you.